Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we'll be reviewing the Shekinah wash process El Salvador from Switch Coffee. There's the cup right there. And Switch, based out of Tokyo, Japan. And I am outside of the location in Meguro City. And just a couple of quick notes before we actually do start the review. So the first thing I wanted to say is that I will be using a wireless mic because it's going to be a little tricky for me to get the audio correct. So hopefully the audio sounds good, as I have to record this in a random park that's nearby the actual coffee shop itself. The second note that I wanted to say real quick is that I was told that I'm not allowed to record inside of the coffee shop itself, so unfortunately I can't add that footage to this review, but the coffee shop itself, it's quite small. The photos that you do see online of it do kind of do it justice, as it's not necessarily the biggest space out there, but I did want to make those two notes known before we start this review. But yes, Switch, they're a coffee roaster that we have actually reviewed on this channel a couple of times before, and a coffee roaster that I do have a bit of familiarity with. This is the first video in our Tokyo review series, and the main reason I chose this shop as the first review for this series is because this was my favorite coffee shop last time I did visit Tokyo. So I did have some pretty nice expectations for it, and I wanted this to kind of set the stage for the reviews that we do have from this point going forward. So yeah, the way that this coffee shop works is that they do have one drip offering each day, and the drip offering was this El Salvador, which is kind of nice given that we don't review too many El Salvadorian coffees on this channel. So let me go ahead and take a sip and I'll give you some of my thoughts. I think a lot of people know that this probably wasn't going to be my first choice, but at least it is a wash processed coffee. And the really dominant factors in this one are definitely a slight bit more of a smoky chocolate aspect to it. So Switch isn't necessarily the lightest roasting coffee roaster relative to a lot of the other things I have had from Japan. They do roast on the slightly more light side of things. They are definitely one of the more well-known Japanese-based coffee roasters as well. But this one offers plenty of those Central American characteristics, of course, a fair bit of that kind of darker chocolate aspect. I believe the note they had listed on here was something along the lines of a milk chocolate, but I think the development is playing a little bit of a role in this, as it does have a bit of a smoky quality to it. So let me go ahead and put up the tasting wheel so you can see what we were getting. All right, and of course, I do have my book with me, my 33 cups of coffee, and my tasting wheel is on here. The other interesting part about this experience was that he actually asked me not to take any notes, which I thought was kind of strange. All I was writing down was the coffee, but even with this experience, it shouldn't sour the review. I'm actually just here to discuss the coffee. But we have quite a few level 4s. We'll start with the cleanliness level 4. Yes, it is still a wash processed coffee, so I was fully expecting a fair bit of clarity to it, and it definitely offers that. Finish is also scoring there at that level 4, and a lot of that has to do with those slightly smoky chocolate qualities that's present within this one. Let's continue on. The acidity level 4. I think that's probably the most interesting part of this coffee to me, as it does have a fair bit more brightness than I might have initially expected going into this review. Just a little bit more brightness in general, so that is something that's definitely noted here on this tasting wheel. Citrus fruit, level 4, yes. And if there's one thing I do have to say about that, I think it's the kind of zesty citric quality to it, almost reminiscent of a, we'll say, orange zest in this cup. Chocolate, level 4, yes. That is the most defining and dominant factor within this coffee for me, so I definitely see that scoring at that higher mark. Then we have a bunch of level 3s, and the first thing I want to start with is the sweetness, level 3. Typically, I don't necessarily have the highest level of sweetness for Central American coffees in general when it comes to El Salvadorians anyway, so that's probably in line with my expectations. Spice, level 3, yes, there's definitely a fair bit of a spice-like quality to this one, as well as a saltiness. One of the things that I might not have necessarily noted is the more, we'll say, nutty quality of this one. Another very much expected quality. Right, and we did have a helicopter fly overhead, so that did taint this review ever so slightly, but I'm going to pick up where I believe I left off, and that was discussing the saltiness and, yes, the slightly nutty quality that was present within this coffee, a fair bit of that as well. And then we have a bunch of level 3s on the other side of that tasting wheel. Smokiness, level 3, yes, that's one of the first things I highlighted and noted, was this was a slightly smoky quality. Bitterness, level 3, yes, I also alluded to there being that orange zest quality in this cup as well. Savoriness, level 3, yes, there's a little bit of an earthy aspect to it. And then the last thing that's worth discussing is the body. At a level 3, I have an ant crawling on me, but yes, this one was a drip coffee, so I did expect it would have a little bit more texture to it. Honestly, I was expecting that might have scored a little higher, but it's a little bit more medium-bodied than heavier-bodied relative to a lot of my expectations for this coffee. But as I am looking at this tasting wheel, I do think it's a pretty good representation of what I was getting from this coffee. All right, so my overall thoughts and impressions of this coffee. I don't know if this one necessarily set the bar overly high, mostly because it wouldn't have necessarily been my first choice. There's some other coffees that they are currently offering, including some African coffees that sound a little bit more my profile. This one right here, though, I think it was mostly marred by the slightly smoky qualities that were present within it, a defining chocolate as well as citric attribute, two things that aren't necessarily my favorite in coffee to begin with. Now, as far as this overall experience goes, I mean, obviously it wasn't necessarily the most ideal, but here's basically what I have to say about that. I definitely respect the boundaries that some people have when it comes to coffee shops. So if there's a place that doesn't want me to record, then that's no issue whatsoever. I wish I just could have given you guys some video quality, because I know a lot of people are curious about what the inside of these coffee shops look like. It happens, and I don't want that to negatively impact this review in any way, because I have had some really nice experiences from this coffee roaster in general. So that's just my thoughts on that. The coffee itself, I think it's fine. I did pick up a bag, so we will be reviewing some more of their coffees as well in the future. Type of person I would suggest this coffee to. I feel like there's a very nice space for somebody that might enjoy their more traditional ones. This right here is very much in line with that. Of course, the chocolate as well as the nutty qualities in this definitely demonstrate that. A medium-bodied component to it as well. And even though it's not necessarily the lightest coffee relative to some of the other things you might have in the area, I do think they do a pretty good job with the development. I think that's the best way I can leave this review. If you by chance had anything from Switch or been to their coffee shop or tried this coffee, I'd love to know your thoughts and impressions of it or that as well. If you're enjoying the content, give this video a like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been a review of the Shekinah Wash Process El Salvador from Switch Coffee. Thank you for watching.